Good evening. I got the thumbs up from the back of the room, so I think we're ready to go. Glad to have everybody back together. For the record, for those of you in the audience, I'm Mark Watts. I'm the chair of the Charter Review Commission. I want to welcome you to our second full meeting. This is the meeting following all of our various listening sessions. And so we're going to start off with a roll call. Madam Secretary, where are you? Present.
Miss Northey. Here. Ms. Bright. Here. Mr. Clayton. Here. Mr. Ingram. Here. Mr. Johnson. Here. Ms. Kwiatek.
Here.
Mr. Lewis. Here. Miss Munizzi.
Here.
Mr. Parker. Here. Mr. Sakonowski.
Here.
Miss Schreiber.
Here.
Mr. Tolland. Here. And Miss Walford. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's good to see everybody. I think we've got almost a full commission this evening, so that's good. We're going to actually get into some of the actual work following our listening sessions tonight. And again, appreciate everybody being here and the members of the public that are here. With that, I'm going to keep the opening remarks brief because we, I think, have a lot of stuff to go through with the materials that staff presented us with. And our first item of business is the approval of the minutes from the organizational meeting on September 3rd, 2025. Everybody have a chance to review the materials in your packet? Are there any changes or revisions to the minutes of the organizational meeting? If not, is there a motion? Got a motion from Vice Chair Northey, and a second from Commissioner Lewis. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll show those as approved. And then finally, or I guess the next item under that, we have item B, the listening session minutes from the September 9th, September 11th, September 15th, September 17th, and September 22nd listening sessions. Did anybody have any revisions or edits to those minutes?
I do.
Yes. Commissioner Schreiber. And if you remember, I was supposed to say this in the beginning, push your button to make sure you can talk and take.
Okay. So on the Ormond Beach, September 15th minutes, I just think that creating a rural boundary charter amendment, the rural instead of rule. I know it's just a simple word, but rule is a word, so I think it should be corrected to rural instead. Rural, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Let's
Under
just make sure
Catherine Pante's, yeah.
Okay, so we've got an amendment to the September 15th minutes and Catherine Pante's comments to change rural to rural. Any other changes or edits? All right, with that, I'll accept a motion with that revision.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Munizzi, second by Vice Chair Northey. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, are we sure that Ms. Pantee wants the note changed from rural to rural? Obviously, the intent is there because
I think the intent was there, and those of us at that meeting, I think, would agree that was the statement made. So
I had the pleasure of watching it from Marathon, Florida. So
yeah, good setting. All right, we've got a motion and a second. No discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved with one revision. Mr. Booker,
Hey,
I think you're up.
good afternoon. Back in 2015, the Charter Review Commission wanted what they called a trend report, which was some data in regards to Volusia County. So we took the liberty before we got into the business of this. We have produced a booklet, which should be also on your tables. It goes through everything that you can imagine about Volusia County, education, demographics, property, taxes, you name it. This is merely for your personal use if you need it and your responsibilities for the Charter Review Commission. So just wanted to throw that out to you. It's nothing that we will refer to, but thought that it might be helpful as you continue your work into next year.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. We've got a question from Vice Chair Northey.
There, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay now? Page 6, and there is a Florida county comparison. How do we pick those counties,
We picked counties that were similar in population
population?
and
Okay.
some other demographic
Okay,
parameters, but basically just size.
okay. So is everything in here then compared to those?
I'm sorry?
Is everything in here then compared, I haven't looked at this yet,
Yeah,
because
we
we just got it.
just got it.
But we do a Florida County comparison on population. Do we do a Florida County comparison using those particular counties in any other place in this?
It's not for
Document.
everything that we've
Okay.
produced in the document, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Northey. Any other questions about the information? Commissioner
I have a
Schreiber.
question. I have a question. So, I mean, I just got this, but is there, I'm looking here, is there a breakdown of city population in here? Okay,
If you feel like you need that information, then we can have our economic development folks provide some, if that's the will of the commission.
I actually think I would like it. If you don't, if no one's opposed, I don't know why you'd be opposed, but I actually think I would like it.
So I guess just a follow-up question for clarification. Are you looking for the data to be provided for the cities within Volusia County or comparing the cities in Volusia County to other cities throughout the state?
So I'm asking for the data in Volusia County, and the reason I'm asking is I kind of want to see where the growth has been, like where I have a general idea of population somewhat, but I think it would be helpful to have, just thinking out loud.
And to see those changes.
Yes.
Certainly, we can take a look at that and provide something for you and the commission.
Yeah, and Mr. Booker, I think that's something that the county, I've seen those reports on kind of an annual basis, so I think it would be something you guys should be able to compile fairly.
Yep. But we'll have something ready for you by the next meeting.
Okay. If it's on the website, Mr. Dyer, I don't mind, but if you could just point me so I don't.
Well, we're happy to give it to you. My information is a little dated by a couple years, but I recall that we used to at least maintain that, so, but we can certainly get that for you. Good question.
Yeah, I don't see any objection around the table, and so I think that would make sense if we can get that for the next meeting as well.
Yeah, I definitely
Commissioner Nick.
think that would be helpful. I just have a question, though, on that stuff that we do have, the 28. So that's, when it says Volusia County, it is all of Volusia County, though, not just the unincorporated area, right? Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions about the data? And obviously, we're all seeing this kind of for the first time, so we'll, I'm sure, have some questions that maybe are follow-up questions after we've had a chance to take a look through it. Mr. County Attorney, this is shown under an action item. Do you just want the commission to accept it, or do we need to take any action?
No, it's your pleasure. I don't think that's necessary.
Commission recognize we've got it? Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay. Moving on to general business. We're going to start out this evening with public participation. Madam Secretary, I don't have any slips. I don't know if you have any slips. I do see that we have members of the
No,
public
sir.
present. Does anybody want to address the commission before we kind of get into the meat of our discussion on some of the information we received on the listening sessions? Okay, if you think of anything, just let us know, and we'll try and get you up and get your input. But we do appreciate you all being here. So thanks for taking the time out to come to the meeting this evening. Okay, so at our prior meetings, I think we talked about, kind of the purpose of this meeting was to kind of take all of the various information we've heard at the listening sessions and some of the other information and suggestions that we've received from staff and start kind of narrowing down or at least classifying how to start reviewing everything. To help us with that, I had asked the staff to put together kind of their summary of the various topics that were raised by speakers through the listening sessions. And if you look in your agendas, I'm sure all of you have kind of gone through the summary of the information, but they listed it by topic and also kind of broke down, kind of the areas that may be preempted, either by general law, preempted by law that requires certain amendments to come from the county council or city commission, or things that may be subject to the restrictions that we're currently operating under with Senate Bill 180. So I asked them to kind of make it even a little simpler. Somebody pass these around here. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I just asked them to take the same thing and color code it so we could look at it simply and kind of go through the list this evening. We can pass those down. And I think, given the amount of stuff that are included in the list this evening, I think the simplest thing may be to go through and first see if there were any questions from members of the commission on any of the specific items that staff had indicated were preempted in one way or another, just so we can make sure that we're clear on that, clear on whether or not we, understand, kind of the preemption that may apply to a particular topic. And so for ease of reference, that would be everything red in the version that you've got now in front of you. And then there were several items that staff had summarized in our list that there may be some additional research needed to determine whether or not it's something that we could consider with the Charter Review Commission. Those are the things that are listed in yellow, or shown in yellow, that we may need to dig into a little bit further if that's something that the commission wants to get into. And then the items that are left without a color are the ones that, based on kind of the staff analysis and the county attorney's office review of the topics that were brought to our attention, those are the ones that kind of are at this point in time from the comments. Those are the things that this commission has purview to get into or consider in our discussions moving forward. So unless the commission has any other suggestions on how to proceed forward, my thought would be start with asking if anybody has any questions about any of the items that have been listed as preempted or as needing further research, and then get into a discussion of the items that the commission may take up, and start talking about whether or not we want to take up some of those particular issues. Any other commissioners have thoughts or suggestions on how to proceed with that? Commissioner Schreiber.
Well, I may have jumped the gun too quick. I have a question about one of the ones that shows preempted, but I don't know if you want to start with that, so if you want me to wait a minute, I will.
Actually, that was exactly where I wanted to start. So if that makes sense to the rest of the commission, we'll start there and go through any questions on the preempted items, and then we'll go from there into the discussion on the items that we may be able to take up. And then
Okay.
from there, we'll get into any items that members of the commission may also want to include for consideration.
Okay. All right. On page 1 of the document that you gave us with the ones highlighted, I have a specific question. So I understand that SB 180 would preempt the rural boundary, but it goes on to say that it's preemptive effective on the municipalities also. So my question, I get it that it's preempted, so maybe, this may seem out of line asking, but I'm going to go ahead and ask anyway. If it weren't preempted by SB 180, couldn't the municipalities be written into the rural boundary as an amendment?
Mr. Dyer, are you able to weigh in on that one?
Yes, it would need to be put on the ballot by the county council under a different state law. So that was passed several years ago. So, but the council, it was announced at our last council meeting, the council is taking up on November 4th. They had asked for information about how could they consider the rural growth boundary proposal such as Orange County. And we did a memo on that. I think our opinion was that Senate Bill 180 puts up a lot of roadblocks, but we, at least our opinion, we read it that it would allow us, the council, to proceed with a portion of what Orange County did, and that is put a different voluntary annexation process in place, which what Orange County did was basically said that if a property was within a designated area, that the county commission had to approve it. We don't think that that's prohibited by Senate Bill 180, the way it's written. And honestly, that's a big piece of that growth management puzzle. But the other parts of what Orange County did with the state has taken position that would be prohibited under 180. The maps and that type of thing.
I understand the SB 180 portion. I'm asking why, I guess I'm asking why, if SB 180 didn't exist, this Charter Review Committee could not, if they chose to, do a roll ready. But also, second part, if the cities, wherever might be impacted by a rural boundary, could go together on the amendment, all in one amendment. If you understand what I'm asking, maybe I'm not clear. But
No, you're clear.
I think it's clear. Mike, I don't know if you want to.
So in the first binder that my office gave you on tab 4, there was a memo addressed the scope of the CRC review. And that statute that basically if it would prohibit this commission from putting forward a land use amendment that would have preemptive effect on cities, but it would allow a county to do it, but the county commission has to do it, which is what Orange County did. Their county commission put the rural growth boundary amendment, and of course, Senate Bill 180 got adopted, but yeah. So I think it could be, putting 180 to the side as if it didn't exist, it could happen. It's just a question of who puts on the ballot. In this case, it'd be the governing body.
So I think, let me clarify, and I'll come back to you, Commissioner Sokowski. I think, Mike, that's the preemption effectively that's in place under 163, where you've cited it in a couple different places.
Yeah, 163, 3167, yes.
So in the absence of Senate Bill 180, you still have certain items that are restricted to only the governing body can place those on the ballot for consideration.
Which is something, just, I mentioned this to Pat earlier, is not something the CRC had to deal with 10 years ago. It's been adopted since then.
Commissioner Sarkowski.
So that being said, that doesn't mean that this body cannot make recommendations to the council on said issues, correct?
I think it does, in that unfortunately, the way Senate Bill 180 was written,
No, I'm talking about 163.3167.
yes,
That's what this.
that would not address that, but Senate Bill 180 does, because it puts a prohibition on proposing.
That's an interesting word, and that is actually.
And unfortunately, it's not defined.
That's exactly right. Doesn't meet, I've read 180, and the word proposing doesn't even appear consistently in the bill. It only appears, I only found it in one place. I don't know about y'all, but I found it in one place, and it was without definition. So what would they do to us if we were to actually make a suggestion, I won't call it a proposal, to the council? Would they hit us with a wet noodle or what?
County would be sued and liable for attorney's fees.
And who would be doing the litigation?
Probably a developer or some group that's opposed
Because
to
it was a mere proposal in that,
Yeah.
by their definition, as opposed to
Unfortunately,
suggestion?
I think so, yes.
But you don't know of any particular developer ready and willing and able to do that?
They don't typically tell me before they sue.
Right, but this is
Yeah.
something untested also, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so, but that word proposal, to me, is probably one that will not survive legal challenge, no matter where it comes from in this state. But that, I don't know if you caught that one, but that is actually a word that was thrown in there, and it says county, it doesn't say what part of the county, it just says county. But that is interesting.
That is one of the things that the county council has voted on and seeking a legislative change to remove that, to have it be shall not enforce rather than propose. Because I've yet to see propose used in a statute like that. It's pretty strong.
I have another question, Mark.
Yes,
When Nick is done.
Commissioner Sharp?
So continuing this, the words are burdensome. I can't remember the exact term.
Restrictive or burdensome.
There you go. So restricted or burdensome. For the purposes of not just the rural boundary, but the items that are considered preemptive, since we really don't know exactly what's considered restricted or burdensome, I'm presuming you're determining, the county's determining what's restricted or burdensome right now?
Without a definition, the case law would have us go back to just a basic definition, dictionary definition of restrictive or burdensome, and which is broad. It doesn't provide any criteria when the restrictive or burdensome would apply, just any restrictive or burdensome. So I think it puts local cities and counties in a difficult position because that is so broad that it's going to capture basically everything that you would do that would add additional standards or requirements on development, the way it's written.
So I would ask this commission to possibly consider some of the items, not necessarily rural boundary, but some of these items, because who's to determine if they're burdensome? The county is making this decision based on previous law, Mr. Dyer? Is that what you said?
Yeah, and let me be clear of what my role is. I'm just the attorney. I'm not one of you. So I don't have a vote. I can give advice, but it doesn't mean you have to take it. So what we have done is gone through and gave an assessment. You may disagree. I say the same thing to the county council. You may not. You don't have to take my advice.
Commissioner Sarkowski?
Yeah, from a legal perspective too, and I agree with the concept of advice, but there's also in law, whether it be here or anywhere else, there's black and white, and in the middle there's gray, and the way I was taught in law school, there's a lot more gray than black and white, and that's why I kind of was uncomfortable with the idea of color coding, because the implication, it's just an opinion, and it's really more orange than a red and a yellow here. So I would just recommend that those of us, when we read it, don't feel that red means prohibited like it normally does.
Well, and I think one of the reasons why I thought it would be helpful to include the colors, to draw out basically which ones we wanted to talk about, whether we as a commission agreed with, kind of that advice, or if we wanted to take that advice, or if we wanted to, perhaps, kind of question it, which is, I think, what's happening here.
Right, I just don't want it implied that we cannot look at red.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that we're dealing with, and we've actually had some emails come into the general email box earlier today also that questioned, kind of what are we doing here if we've got this amount of preemption? But we're effectively the first time the first Charter Review Commission that has had to deal with the amount of preemption that has occurred over the past 10 years, and we've got the specter of 180 hanging over us with the lack of clarity. And so I think that was the basis by which I just asked to organize things a little bit better so we could say, here's the ones that we're questioning. Here's the, that we've been advised at this point in time are likely subject to some form of preemption.
Potentially. It's not tested in any way, shape, or form.
Don't disagree at all. Yeah.
I actually appreciate the order that you did because it made it easier for me to bring it up right away, just saying. But I do understand what he said. I get that. But as an organizational, it helped me bring it up. Yeah.
So perhaps to, again, looking at, 17 pages of recommended or suggested things for us to look at based on just the staff and county recommendations and also the ones we heard from the listening sessions. So my intent was, if there are ones that we want to, kind of say, hey, we've got a question about this, it's one that's been identified as preempted or that needs additional research, let's identify those specifically. And then we can, either ask staff to follow up on those particular issues or not, depending on what the consensus of the commission is. And then from there, we can decide, okay, are we going to continue down, is there support among the commission to, perhaps seek a secondary opinion? I mean, obviously, some of this, Commissioner Sarkovsky, to your point, we're not going to know the answer to some of this until a court weighs in on it. And so there is certainly that lack of clarity at the moment, which is why I think Mr. Dyer has given us the advice that, looking at rules of statutory construction and things of that nature, we're going to go with definitions that are pretty broad, which makes the application of it fairly broad. All right, so we've talked a little bit about some of the items on page one. Anybody else want to speak to any of the specific items that were identified by staff as preempted, perhaps for some follow-up discussion? We don't have to get into that follow-up discussion immediately, just to identify the things that you may want to delve a little deeper into as we move forward with the discussion. If you just refer to a page number and item, we can go through, and then we'll get into the ones that are fair game, so to speak.
Is it possible to go through some of these things that clearly can't be dealt with by us and take them off the table?
I think that's the intent moving forward from here is if we, as a group, decide we agree with the analysis that's been provided to us and we want to kind of stay away from the areas that have been indicated are preempted, then we can essentially take those off the table for the discussions moving forward and focus on the areas where we may have some latitude.
So should we go through those now? For instance, with the first one, county authority to establish citizen oversight panel to investigate police misconduct. And it says it cannot be addressed in the charter. The sheriff is an independent constitutional office, not subject to investigation by the county. That seems to me that's pretty clear. That's not something we're going to be able to deal with.
Correct.
So can we just take that off the list, or do we need a vote on every individual one in red? Or?
I don't think we need to vote on every individual one in red. My intent in setting it up this way and asking staff to set it up this way was for us to basically say, are there any of the ones in red we disagree with the conclusion on? And
Okay,
perhaps
so
set those
if it's-
aside.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll
Otherwise,
kind
all
of
in
steer
red
away
will
from the
stay.
ones in red. If there's any questions on the ones in yellow where there may be some additional research needed, we can then ask staff to do that additional research to let us know whether we've got the latitude to go into those areas. And then once we get through that, we'll focus on the areas that they've identified that we do have authority to look at based on the current state of the law.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner
The only-
Sarkovsky.
The only thing I would just share too is that certain things which cannot be considered in a charter may, and I agree that 180 is a complicating factor, but may be able to be addressed by ordinance. And the power of this commission is to suggest ordinances as well. So I just want to suggest that just because something may be off the table for a charter amendment, it doesn't mean it's off the table for an ordinance recommendation.
Anything in particular that any of the members of the commission want to talk about that are currently listed in kind of that red color coding? Any specific issues? I'm getting shaking heads over here on the left side. Okay. So I guess moving on then to a couple of the items that were listed as, maybe requiring additional information. Were there any questions on those or requests from the commission to kind of look into those a little bit deeper or have staff prepare additional analysis on those items. I think the first one I see is on page 5. Limitations on land uses on neighboring properties. I think that was from the Ormond listening session. All right, not getting any on that one. So moving on page 8, amendment to require treated wastewater to be distributed to upland areas for filtration. Again, I think that was one the staff identified that there may be some additional research necessary if that's an area that the commission wants to look into. Commissioner Schreiber, I see your head nodding. You want to talk about that one?
I would like to talk about that one. 8?
17.
Oh, yeah, 8, right.
What I'm going to do right now is just put a kind of an asterisk next to the ones that we may want to kind of take back up and ask staff to look into further. And then we'll do the same thing with the ones that are not color-coded, that are kind of fair game, to see if they're ones that the commission supports going forward with getting some additional information on. And then we'll kind of figure out how to, sort of eat that elephant as we move forward, if you will. So we got 8 of 17. How about on 10 of 17? There's a couple of items there. Mandate Volusia Forever program acquire 55%. I think the current target is 50%. Vice Chair Northey.
There we go.
Messes with their
There we
recording
go.
information.
I want to be careful about things that we put into the charter, but this is one that, if I understand this correctly, there is nothing in the charter now that mandates any percent of land. So I would like to talk about this, as part of what we're doing. I don't know if 55% is the right number or whether the goal of 50 is the right number. I have to think about that, but I do want to talk about, could this be a charter issue?
Okay. Well, I think, and let me look to my fellow commissioners who have spent time on the council before. My thought is run through this and kind of get that list, and then go through with the ones that there's support for, and see if we've got the full commission, majority of the commission prepared to move forward with that. Does that make sense to you all?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the percentage for the Volusia Forever program on page 10. The next item is remove the authority for the council to directly purchase Volusia Forever properties. That was another suggestion. Any question or getting heads shaking on that one? So, Nate, sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I joined the CRC and was appointed by a council member under the notion that we're looking at things from a 30 to 40,000 foot view, where we're looking at the last 10 years on what worked and what didn't, and then looking forward for the next 10, 20, 50 years. But it seems like a lot of these suggestions that we're looking at, especially the ones that are highlighted in red and some of these that are in yellow, are more day-to-day policy decisions and things that we really shouldn't be concerned with. I mean, why am I concerned whether code enforcement officers are wearing body cameras when we have other greater issues to look at? And so in thinking of some of the things that we're looking at in here, really, okay, so they could be under the purview of the CRC, but is it really something that we want to deal with when we could be focusing on some of the bigger issues? So I admire what you're doing and moving through here so we can discard the chaff from the wheat and move forward. And I would just say that to my fellow members, that we look at things that are going to impact our citizens from a 50,000 foot level and leave the day-to-day operations to the folks that have been elected to run it or that we have hired to do it, like legal staff. We hire them to do our job for us, to examine the laws and make sure that what we are looking at to put forward to the county, first of all, is responsible. Secondly, it's legal. And maybe I have those reversed. Maybe it's legal and then responsible, Mr. Dyer. But I don't want to be on the CRC and make recommendations to council that are going to get us sued, because it's our tax dollars that are paying those lawsuits to begin with. And just to make a statement, I don't want to waste taxpayers' dollars just to be on one side of an issue or the other. So I commend you on being careful with that. And I make this suggestion to the rest of our council that we are very careful in what we do and very deliberate moving forward and not putting us into a libelous situation to where we have to have staff involved and it's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to reverse something that we do. Thank you.
No, and I appreciate those thoughts and comments. And I think that as we kind of get through the course of the discussion this evening, I think those are some of the things that, I think a lot of the commissioners will be taking into account as we decide what to move forward with. Okay,
I
so.
would like to address, I'm sorry, at
Go
the
ahead.
page, at the bottom of page 10, code enforcement officers wear body cameras. I know that sounds like something that we wouldn't want to get involved in, and I do know that the Volusia County Council has brought that up already and talked about the legal issues with the fact that code enforcement officers don't have the same protection as law enforcement officers. And I believe, Mr. Booker, isn't that on the legislative agenda to ask for that
Yes.
law to be changed?
We have that as part of our legislative priorities. Yes, ma'am.
So I would think that's something that we ought to, not mess with, because the county council's already addressing it, it's already moving forward, it's already in action. It's not something we really need to weigh in on.
So in essence, you're agreeing that that's not one to include on our list moving forward?
Correct.
Okay.
Mark,
So, yes.
sorry, I was waiting for them. I want to go back to the one that you were on earlier that was right on page 10, the remove the authority of the council to directly purchase Volusia Forever properties. I would like to bring back more information on that.
Okay, so let's, again, right now, I'm just going to identify them, and then we'll go through and see if there's a consensus among the commission for each of the ones that we've identified from there. Perfect. No, that I didn't have an asterisk, so I'll bring that one back up. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I have to agree. I want to go back to Mr. Ingram. I have to agree with some of this being former county council. A lot of people throw out ideas, and several of us in there that have no clue.
Is your mic on?
It's up. I thought it was on, I'm sorry. A lot of people throw out ideas that really have no clue how it works or what it works. They feel like they have been wronged or something. That's not the council. The charter is not the place to try to correct those ills. And you start taking away the power of the county council, you have really made a mess of our charter. We elect them, ideas change, circumstances change, and when you put this in charter, you have it for 10 years and no way to undo it in that 10 years. So we have to be very careful not to take away the autonomy of the Volusia County Council who are elected by the citizens.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I think that'll be something that comes out as we work on a consensus on whether or not to pick up some of these issues. I was meeting with staff last week, and one of the things I mentioned was I think it's the state of Missouri's constitution is 1,200 pages long because they put so many things in it, from the flashpoint of kerosene to the basic rights for all citizens of Missouri. Probably a little bit of overkill. I don't think the flashpoint of kerosene needs to be in the Constitution, but I think that'll be what kind of informs the next step in this process after we go through and identify the ones that we may want to consider and go through and poll the commission members. So, yes, down on the end.
I think we owe it to the residents to go through everything they brought up, and if it's something that's not, we can't legally do or isn't affected by us, it's our job to explain to the residents why, but I think it's our job to go through everything that's important to the residents and everything that they brought up.
Agreed, and I think that's the reason we've got the document in front of us that we do now. And I think this, my intent is that this process this evening is where we're starting to work through that, and we want to make sure that from here, these materials are part of our record moving forward and part of the explanation to members of the public that came out to our sessions and provided that input of why this commission may or may not be able to do anything with regard to some of those suggestions. But I think that that's this process, and it's not necessarily a cleaner or streamlined process. It's a little bit messy, but it was the best thing that I could come up with. So, bear with me. Let's kind of go through the rest of the list, see if there's anything else we want to talk about, and then we'll go back through and start talking about the ones we want to include on our agendas. Anything on page 11 or 12 from the commission? Again, these are the ones with, We already dealt with all the red ones, but any of the yellow ones. So on bottom of page 12, we've got mandate funding for public transportation. Commissioner Sikorsky?
Yeah, I'd like to put an asterisk there.
Okay. Reference resiliency in the charter. This was from the DeLand listening session. Yes, Commissioner.
I'm not sure what that means. I mean, resiliency is certainly something we should be doing as a county, but I don't know what that means. Did we get any background from the speaker? I don't know who Jay Baker is.
John Baker.
John Baker?
Yeah.
Well, it says Jay Baker here, okay.
My recollection, Vice Chair Northey, of that comment at the listening session was simply that. It was reference resiliency as a organizing principle within the charter. I think that was the extent of it, unless any other commissioner has another additional recollection
So
from
there
that meeting.
was no place where they would put that? No additional language?
It was just a general request to reference resiliency in the charter.
I mean, I like the idea of being a resilient county, but I'm not sure how that
I have a question
in the
that
charter.
goes along with what you're asking. Are we under any obligation to turn around and ask the person who spoke, not us personally, but county staff, to ask them what they meant, like further, or not really? Just asking.
We, I think, from this process, obviously this is all occurring in the public, and each of the speakers that came out have the opportunity to come back to additional meetings, provide us that additional input. If they take a look at what we've generated here and say, hey, you guys have missed the mark, you've misunderstood what I was talking about, then perhaps they can come to a subsequent meeting and give us additional detail.
Well, it also says in here that it probably would likely prohibit the proposal of this topic, and that would be Senate Bill 180, so I don't.
I think it would probably get into the detail of how you're referencing it, then may trigger some other concerns. There's none other than the next one I've got is on 16 of 17, amend the charter to allow revenue raised by thoroughfare road impact fees to be expended in alternate forms of transportation. I think that's from the DeLand listening session again. Anybody have that one marked as one to get into further research on?
Are you referring to page 16, I'm sorry?
Yes, 16 of 17. That was the last yellow one that I think we hadn't addressed yet.
I would like more information.
Okay, got that one marked down. Any others? Commissioner Sirkowski.
I'm just going to make a motion then, just to make some progress here, is that we've only identified, I think, 4 of the yellows, 5 of the yellows, and because 2 of them are related, and the ones that are not color-coded, as you put it, that we get more information.
Okay, so I think if we get into a lot of the individual ones, my observation is we may want to talk about some of these in particular. Moving forward, if you can clarify your
Be more
motion for me.
efficient with it.
Okay,
So if anyone wants to second it, then we can get into discussion, maybe modify it further, but.
okay, so can you restate your motion for me, because I'm not sure I
that
fully
we-
understood it.
The whole concept of this discussion was that we identify items that potentially need more information from staff, and the staff themselves have identified the yellows and the whites. I'll call them the whites for lack of a better word, instead of non-color coded. And that we just simply refer those for more information, but better analysis.
Okay, and that's in the form of a motion. So we have a motion to ask staff to provide us additional analysis on all items, or the 4 items that were listed as the yellow items for follow-up research, and I've got that as, on page 8, the review of amend to require treated wastewater to be distributed to upland areas for filtration. Mandate Volusia, on page 10, mandate Volusia Forever to be at 55% goal within the charter. Remove also on page 10, remove the authority of the council to directly purchase Volusia Forever properties. That was also on page 10. And on page 12, mandate funding sources for public transportation. And on page 16, amend the one relating to the use of thoroughfare road impact fees. I think those are the yellow ones that you were mentioning, and then I think your motion includes all the non-colored ones that, and, yeah. So we got a motion, we don't have a second yet. Let's see if there's a second for discussion.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, we've got a second for discussion. Is there any discussion? Vice Chair Moore.
Yeah, maybe I'm just confused on this, but I agree that we should be talking about the yellows especially. The whites, we haven't talked, we haven't talked about those yet. So are we intending to talk about them tonight, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so,
I mean, like term limits for staff, I would throw that one out automatically, but.
that was my purpose in
Okay,
saying,
yeah,
let's go through
I'm
these.
sensitive to that, and that's, if you want to just put the whites, non-colored,
The non-colored,
colored, whatever you want
yeah.
to call it, aside, that's fine with me. I just want to move the yellows, the 5 yellows, and then move on to
Can we
those.
move
That's,
to five-
that makes
just
sense.
5 yellows
Yeah, so
first, yeah.
I misspoke before.
So is there an amendment to your motion?
I'm withdrawing the,
I'll
withdrawing the
withdraw
motion.
my
I'm just
second.
modifying
I
the
did it for
motion, yes.
discussion.
All right. Is there
Thank you for
is there a
pointing that out.
follow-up
Just the
motion?
yellows.
Is there a follow-up motion to your motion with regard to the 4 that are, yellow ones that have been identified for additional research? Okay. Okay. So, what's the commission's consensus with regard to, do you want to go ahead and see if there's a consensus on each of those 4 items that have been identified for additional research? So we can move on from those and then start talking about the other
The
items?
motion is to just move all, to get more input. We'll have that discussion later.
You mean like in a different meeting?
Yeah, because the whole point is the staff itself identified those as things that needed more research. Let them do the research and get back to us, then we'll talk about it.
So for purposes of clarity, let's give the staff a motion that says we want you to look at these 5, and clarify the 5th one for me. Okay, the thoroughfare road impact fee topic, and ask them to bring that back for additional information for the next meeting. So is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, is there a second?
I was trying to second that before, so
Okay.
I'll second it again.
We'll second it again. So Commissioner Shiver with the second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, so with that, I think it's a 13-1 vote with regard to just asking for additional information on those 5 issues to be brought for the next meeting. Mr. Dyer, do you have enough information to provide that next level of analysis there?
Can you clarify those 5 again on what pages they're on?
Sure, it is the item on page 8 of 17 with regard to distribution of treated wastewater for native vegetation, filtration. The item on 10 about mandating a specific percentage for Volusia Forever's target for acquisition. The item removing the authority for the county council to directly purchase Volusia Forever properties on page 10. On page 12, mandated funding source for public transportation. And then finally, on page 16, amending the charter to get into specific allocation of revenues from the thoroughfare road impact
Thank you.
fee. And again, I think, we may get into some detail on some of those in the subsequent meetings and subsequent discussions with regard to whether or not we think that's an actual charter, appropriate topic for the charter. So, okay. All right. Hopefully that at least makes it a little bit simpler. Let's go back through, if you will. I think just going through quickly to address the items that did not have color. We didn't want to put green on them to signify any kind of an endorsement or anything of that nature, but I just wanted to try and be able to highlight these simply for discussion. Hopefully it's working so far, but we'll see. So on page 1 of 17, there was a discussion of term limits for staff. I wanted to just see if there's a consensus for that item, or if that's one that we don't want to take up any further discussion on. Yes?
I'd just like some clarification. It says senior management works at will, so can they also be terminated at will?
Yes, that's what that means.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not seeing any real consensus on that item,
Except John Booker.
except John Booker. Commissioner Ingram?
This is another one that I don't feel that we should be involved in.
Well, we're
There's
not.
already ad nauseum mechanisms for getting rid of employees. This, to me, just seems like this is going to be a personal beef against somebody with county as another bite at the apple, if you will, on how to get rid of staff. And I think we have plenty of mechanisms in place already for that.
So are you looking for
Yeah.
a motion?
No, I think we'll go through.
Just consensus, right?
I think
Okay.
there's-
Okay.
We'll get general consensus that that's not one that we want to pursue further. And then at the end of this, we'll go through and say, here's the ones that we've identified that we do want to pursue. We'll get a vote on those, and then we've got our agenda set moving forward. That make sense? Yes, sir. All right, excellent. So our next item then would be on page 3, require native landscaping for county properties. I will say this is one, just from my perspective, in dealing with the county's requirements for landscaping. It's already a requirement in a lot of the county regulations.
Agreed.
That's what staff has also indicated on that. Is there any desire to include that as a charter amendment moving forward?
Okay, that's the right one this time. I'm just wondering, knowing Joe, whether he's looking at this to be beyond just the unincorporated county and into mandating it for cities. That's the only thing I wondered about, but we already do that with the county, so.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? I think the general consensus I see would be not to include that one
Right.
moving forward.
I have a question.
Commissioner Schreiber.
The percentages, there's a few different, well, more than a few. Several sections here.
You're referring to the percentages that are currently required under the county's ordinances?
Yes.
So I think what that indicates is those are the percentages that the current ordinances already require for some of those things. So, for example, under section 50-136 and 72-1100, there's a specific standard that relates to any area within the Indian River Lagoon watershed that has a 35% open space within the property boundaries that's landscaped with native vegetation and species. So that's a current requirement that's in the Code of Ordinances. And I think the question here is, should we have that level of specificity in the charter? And I think just from a structural standpoint, I would say no, because then you're starting to be like the Missouri Constitution. But I do think that it's an important standard that we've currently got in our ordinances. And this is a list, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the kind of exhaustive list that staff put together of where we've got some of those specific things already. So I don't see is there a general consensus to move past that one?
So
Okay.
Yes.
the specific ordinance for the Indian River Lagoon, I grasp what you're saying about not making a charter. Like, I don't disagree with that. But we're not discussing ordinances at all as far as, because that is low to me for the Indian River Lagoon.
So I think for purposes of narrowing the discussion, I think there may be some additional things to look at with regard to the recommendation for ordinances and things of that nature. I think right now it would be, my experience in doing this 10 years ago, I think it's helpful for the commission to narrow down where we're going to focus, because, we're going to meet once a month, and we may need to identify committees and things of that nature to do some additional work in between those meetings. So I think if we can start with narrowing down the charter amendment issues, if there are then some issues, at the end of this process, I was going to go back to the commissioners to see if the commissioners have any other area that we'd like to look at from a charter amendment or an ordinance, and then we can include that in the list and figure out how to then begin dividing that up.
And one thing I should add, when we responded to this, I just took it the way Mr. Hanush had presented. He mentioned for county properties. So we listed what was available, but some of it, if we were to try to propose or adopt it now, it would be wrapped up in Senate Bill 180 because it would be more burdensome or restrictive, unfortunately.
Correct. Commissioner Inger.
Mr. Dyer, the way that the suggestion is written for county properties, that could literally be every county property, regardless of use, which, once again, this would be more under the purview of county council for direction and not a 10-year charter review committee. But in reading that, it's openly vague, and I think we're ready to move on from it.
Yeah. Any other, Vice Chairman Romney?
Mike, we currently have minimum standards in the charter now, and we have some standards that are specific to environmental issues. And do we have, we're supposed to be countywide, not just unincorporated, but countywide. But we don't, as a county, from what I remember, unless it's changed, we do not enforce those minimum standards, correct?
Right.
We look to the cities to enforce them.
And I think you're discussing the environmental minimum standard provision in the charter. And I think the reason why it was drafted the way it was in the 1980s was it's very careful to not transfer a service away from a city.
Right.
When you do that under the Constitution, you have to have a referendum both in the city and county.
Okay.
So it was just preserving the regulatory authority and having them have their code enforcement or whoever enforce that rule. We are authorized to sue the city if they're not enforcing.
Enforcing?
Okay.
I don't want to get off
Commissioner
topic.
Schreiber.
So I don't want to get off topic, but I do have a question that's pertinent to what's being discussed here. So all these ordinances that are listed under the native plants, there's a turnover of elected officials and staff. So out of sheer curiosity, how are the cities, how do they keep up with this? I mean, is that the city manager's job to let them all know? Because, for example, the cities along the east, the east side for the IRL, at 35%, I'm kind of thinking they don't even know this.
I can, just from recent experience, I can tell you Edgewater does. And they regularly enforce that same standard on projects that are within that
Planning
designated
directors?
Planning director.
That's
at
what I
Edgewater.
was saying, like
Yeah.
who? Okay.
Yeah, the planning directors generally do. Again, you see staff at the vast majority of the jurisdictions that I work with are aware of the minimum standards that the county has adopted and do require those to be met in the developments that are coming forward in their jurisdictions.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Parker.
I
Commissioner
can
Parker.
kind of address that issue because when the county passes the minimum standards, they come and talk to city staff, and then the ordinances then are amended to bring the city's ordinances into compliance. So it's not something that we have to read in the newspaper. They really, I can say the county staff does a great job of communicating. And even before the ordinances are adopted, cities are involved in the process. So I can speak from personal experience of how that works.
It's just quite a bit of turnover. I mean, in certain cities, then, yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, great question. Great question. So I think, and I know, Commissioner Parker, you do have a good deal of experience in how that has been implemented over the course of a few decades. So on page 7, just continuing on through the items that, whether or not we want to take them up. Page 7, on the top of the page, amend existing requirement of section 308.1 to maintain the code of ordinance to require additional notice requirements. And I think this also related to code enforcement items. I'm sorry. Is there a consensus on taking that up, or are we good? Okay, I'm not getting a consensus on that one. The next item, change county elections from nonpartisan to partisan. A lot of head shaking on that one. Anybody feel strongly?
If you go
Commissioner
to
Parker.
partisanship, okay, about a quarter of the voters would not be participating in the elections process because it becomes a party function at that point in time. I think that's one of the strengths of our charter is that everyone gets to participate in the process and not just the party side of it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That I think that the way we're structured currently keeps it from being decided at a primary, for example, and lets everybody have an opportunity to vote for those offices.
It's already party.
Yeah, but
Sure it is.
Everybody knows what they are. I mean, the handouts, I mean, you can say it's nonpartisan, but it's partisan. We all know that.
Well,
They, you know, I just thought I'd throw that out. For y'all to think that it's not partisan, it's partisan.
But primaries are,
No, I'm with you. I'm NPA. I'm nothing.
okay.
No, I got it. I'm just saying, you all do understand when it comes time to vote, everybody knows what their
So
registration
let me,
is.
let me sum that up by saying, for a plethora of reasons, we think that's not a good idea to pick up and continue discussion on.
Leave it alone.
So moving on to the next one, amend section 1003.1 to further address whether a member of the personnel board may be reappointed after a removal for cause.
Why would we
Any
do
desire to pick that up?
No.
No. Moving on, bottom of page 7, amend 306 of the charter to address east side meetings of the county council. Any desire to pick that up?
Yes,
Commissioner
It's
Schreiber?
already an option.
yes.
Yeah, okay, so let me just highlight that one, and then we'll pick that up for further discussion. Page 9, require that the county protected lands may be disposed by a supermajority vote of the county council only. Any desire to include that in the discussion moving forward? I'm getting head shaking on that. Commissioner, or Vice Chair Northey?
Yeah, what do they mean by protected lands? Because we can, if I recall correctly, sometimes you had plots or lots that came before you, and we made contributions to Habitat for Humanity. We made other contributions on those. And so did we have any idea what protected mean? I mean, I would not want to see the council sell off lands that we have already purchased. Is that what we're talking about then?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, the speaker didn't define it, but I would imagine, lands are purchased with Volusia Forever funds, conservation
Well, then I
purposes.
would
I
think we ought
think
to
that
talk
was
about that.
what was intended, but
That was how I had interpreted that, so Commissioner Schreiber?
Agree with Ms.
Okay.
I agree with Ms. Northey.
All right, so we'll hold that one aside for further discussion. Page 12, require county to maintain pedestrian safety reporting mandate. That came from the DeLand reporting session. I think a lot of that is covered by the TPO currently. We do get a lot of that data. I know the county staff does require that data on safety analysis every time they're doing traffic studies and everything else. So my view would be that it's not a charter issue, but any other?
Agree.
Okay, so we'll take that off. Moving forward on page 16 of 17, potable water supply. This was an email suggestion that came in. I'm trying to, page 16 of 17. Did I skip one, or? No. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly what that
That means,
proposal related to. Let me see if that, I think there's a tab that has the additional information on that one. I think this is the one that related to lawn watering with potable water. Is that?
it just says protect potable water supply. I don't,
I think this was,
what
okay,
that
so in
means.
the email that came in, I think it's behind the tab with emails from Amber Gilbert. It says C. Gilbert, let me see. Carol Gilbert, let's see. I think that was protect potable water supply, as presented by Dr. Anderson with the 5-point recommendations. So some of those, I think, were specifically separately addressed with the 5 points that were pulled out into the list that Dr. Anderson had provided. So any desire to continue with that one? Okay. So let me just run through.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to make a motion that we accept the 2 for further analysis. There were only 2 that we picked. Page 7, the last one, and page 9. The 2 non-color coded ones.
Okay, so the motion is to include the last item on page 7, the non-colored item on page 9 for additional further
Right, those are
review and
the only
analysis.
2 that passed our little review here.
Okay, so we've got a motion. Is there a second? Got a motion from Commissioner Sikorsky, second from Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, we got through
Can I
the first part.
ask a question about this? Is
Yes.
this all already on the website for other people to take a look at? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
We're going to upload the color code version tomorrow
thank
morning.
you, that would be,
But the,
okay, all right.
the,
And put our, you know, what the motions were that were, okay. Okay.
All right, so that actually didn't take quite as long as I thought it was going to, so I appreciate you all working through that. I thought it was going to take longer, frankly. All right, so let me then draw your attention. We do have some additional charter amendment concepts that were included in Exhibit B. These are the ones that were brought forward to us by staff. And let me see if I can simplify this one, assuming that everybody has taken a look at that list. Are there,
What document are we on?
so behind the color-coded one, there were, I believe, 11 recommendations for discussion or review that came from staff. And these are things that deal with, I think, kind of their experience working with the charter. Let me ask, is there any commissioner that has reviewed that list that thinks there's something we shouldn't discuss at a further meeting included on that list? Vice Chair Northey.
We just
Yeah.
received this tonight, right?
no, that was part of the.
It was in the original
Exhibit
packet?
B, yes.
Okay, I guess I'm wondering about the very last one of them, tax collector budget. Why we are singling out tax collector budget when we have other, what used to be departments that were elected department heads that reported to the manager, and tax collector was one of them, so was elections was one of them, and it was a number of them. But we're only looking at tax collector. Is there a reason why? I know there's been some issue.
Mr.
on the-
Chumley is going
on
to.
the council, but that could be just
is
an
this on?
annual
Okay.
issue.
Yeah, I looked into that. Oddly, the tax collector is one of the only constitutional officers where there's a statutory provision that says that there's a couple different ways that their budget can be approved. One of them, of course, is put off by Amendment 10 because Amendment 10 made them separate. And that was by making them an internal part of the county. Volusia County used to be used as an example in the Department of Revenue's literature on that. There's another one, though, that says that it says that they, under the statute, says, or otherwise, and I'm paraphrasing, I think it's quoted in the document, but or otherwise determined by charter. So this has to do with the difference between whether the tax collector is a budget officer, meaning that their budget is approved by the local government, or they are a fee officer, which means that their budget's approved by Department of Revenue. And the default is that they are a fee officer and they report to the Department of Revenue. However, there are some counties that have made their tax collector a budget officer just because it's cheaper. And it's usually in smaller counties that don't have as much revenue, and therefore, it's easier to just integrate. The tax collector signs a resolution with the board, but it does appear to be, I wasn't able to find an example of where this has been done by charter, but the option is still in there in the statute that was not taken away. Now, it would not make the tax collector any less, I would say it would not make them any less of a constitutional officer, but the statute does specifically
Except they would
provide.
have to come to the council for their budget approval. or not.
Possibly, depending on how it's written.
Well,
And it's unusual
I'm
the way
just going
it's
to say
written.
this sounds very punitive to
We-
me, considering
Well-
what's going on right now at council level.
This
with this.
existed prior to that. This did not come from council, by the way. In meeting with Mark, it was, these aren't recommended by staff necessarily at all. These are things that have come up over the last few years. You said, well, like, for example, number 5, we have a uniform vehicular beach access fee in the charter. We've stumbled onto that and having to deal with that with implementing different things. So it's purely for your discussion, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I think this was the attempt by county staff to identify the things that have come up over the past 10 years, whether it was, and I will say, this was, I saw this list more than a month ago, so it's not, I think, anything triggered by recent events. Vice Chair Northey, so.
Okay.
But I guess the question stands, are there any of these that we don't feel we want to get into moving forward with discussion? Commissioner Skowski.
Just Sacknowski.
Sorry.
The only thing I would recommend on number 2 is to do, if we're referring this for a further analysis, which I think is the concept here, it should be also looked at as the reverse as well, so that instead of just saying, if the concept is consistency, to have it that the council also just have a majority rule. So specifically, to get to the details, and I have brought this up in discussions with staff, is that any recommendations that this group might make that requires council approval, because all that was subsequent to the original creation of the charter, that it only be a majority rule of the council. So this idea that's because it's 2/3 already in there, to justify 2/3 here, it's equally logical to say, well, if it's a majority here, we should make it a majority there. So I just want it, if it's going to be analyze it both ways.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. Any that you don't want to see us look at further as we move forward on this list? I'm not
Can I
seeing
just
anybody.
ask for about one more?
Vice Chair Norby.
Item 7, the annual report on preemption by State of County Home Rule Authority. I'm not sure I understand what that actually means, Mike.
It would be,
Because we do a report now on all of the,
well, we have one internally for staff level, but we don't have one that goes to council on how we're preempted, although certainly we're for staff to deal with that in different hearings. It's not anything we have to do. It's something we would just, and I know I responded to you on 11. You may not be in favor of that. So, you know, I think that's what Mark's.
I would just add on that 7, it doesn't say, it says requires a written annual report. Is by whom?
I think that's part of the clarification we would get into if we take that item up as a discussion item. So if it's by the county manager or his
Well, I mean, I
designee
wouldn't- I
or.
don't- But since staff proposed it, I wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Who were you suggesting do this?
The county attorney or county manager.
So you'll look at it both ways if we kick it back to you?
I would prefer that it be done by the county manager. I don't think he,
Well, yeah, that's what I say. I would, and we're not going to ask him what he thinks. I'm just kidding you.
That sounds like a special project, right? That seems like that might flow down to our new deputy county manager as well.
Yeah, I feel that it's already basically covered myself. I'm going to move that we, with the modification we discussed on number 2 to have it both directions, to refer these back to staff with the exception of 7 and 11.
for what?
Okay, so the
Back to them for further.
Oh, for further,
With the
okay.
exception of 7 and
Okay, so you want to continue to discuss them? Okay.
with the exception
Yeah.
of 7 and 11.
I think, you know, the point here would be to round out
Oh,
our agenda moving forward. It's
Okay.
the things we've already approved off the other list, plus everything off of this list with the exception of 7 and 11. I think that's the motion. Is there a second? Got a second from Commissioner Lewis. Any discussion on that motion?
Why are we not examining
Commissioner
7?
Ingram.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right.
Why are we not looking further at 7 and 11 if staff has identified this as something that we need to look at?
That's just how the motion has come out. So, you know, I think the question now would be, you know, is there a consensus for that motion, or is there a consensus to have a second motion depending on how this one goes?
It's nothing to stop a subsequent motion to add those. Just to make us move on.
Vice Chair Northey.
I actually think I spoke about probably both of those. I'm fine to have more information to discuss them. I mean, it is coming from the staff, and I think that's important for us to hear what the concerns are. So I appreciate that motion. I would not exempt those 2 items in it for discussion.
The sense is that to just move them all.
Yeah, I would- Yeah.
My main thing was to have 2 looked at both ways.
Yeah.
And that was accepted. So I'm going to withdraw that motion, and I'll make a motion just to move the 11 with the modification of 2.
Okay. Got a motion from Commissioner Sakovsky. All right, one more time. Sacknowski. And a second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Schreiber.
I have a question for Mr. Dyer. On item 3, name change of council to commission. So I'm trying to figure out how to pose this question. Being that we're a charter form of government and we're currently a council, SB 180 is really only impacting land, but nevertheless, this is the charter. So if we change council to commission, is that impacted at all? I wouldn't think so, but we're changing our charter literally at the same time this bill is happening.
So I think, and I'll give you my answer and then defer to staff. So statutorily, under Chapter 125 identifies the governing body of any county as a commission, Board of County Commissioners. Volusia County, I believe, is the only county that has a council instead of a commission. And I'd actually heard this suggestion from a couple of sources that I don't know that we don't like feeling different or what it is, but there was a suggestion that we look at whether we should continue to be a council or a commission. I don't think that would fall within the purview of anything dealing with Senate Bill 180 or any other limitation.
I would agree.
I'm kind of surprised that is not preempted by anything based on all preemptions, just saying.
They haven't thought of it yet, but all right. So I've got a motion with the modification of number 2. Commissioner Lewis.
If you've ever been on the council, you understand that whenever you go any place, they say, what are you? Say, I'm the county commissioner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you have to always explain that wherever you go.
Yeah.
I understand. I've had to explain it myself as to why, so I get that. I just thought I would ask the legalities, just out of curiosity of everything being so preempted now.
No, I don't disagree. All right, so we got a motion with the modification to number 2 to make it, I'll call it bilateral, if you will, and otherwise to continue on with the items that were suggested by staff, items 1 through 11, with the modification to 2. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that passes. All right, so we have identified the topics, at least from the lists that we had presented to us. The last thing that I thought we may want to discuss tonight, it may be something you want to defer to a meeting down the road, but you know, as commissioners, we may also have thoughts of things or topics that we want to include on the agendas moving forward. We haven't had any real input.
Well, I certainly have some thoughts on that, but I'm just wondering if it should be something that we take up at a separate meeting and give everybody an opportunity to be heard. 'Cause
So
we could go into some dark holes on this one.
So in essence, Vice Chair, you're asking me to send everybody home with homework.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's. Is everybody generally agree with that? What I'd like to do. We've heard from the public. We've heard from staff. Obviously, there's 15 of us that are sitting on this commission that may have some additional thoughts on things to look at. Why don't we do this based on that suggestion? At the next meeting, we will open the discussion with any other suggestions from members of the commission, other areas we may want to look at now that we've kind of got some.
Do you want them in before that? Would it be helpful to have them sent to staff, to John, to put on a list?
Yeah, so why don't we do that? I think that would be helpful. If we could,
Okay.
if you have, as members of the commission, any other areas you'd like us to discuss that we haven't covered with what's been approved, and we'll circulate the list that's been approved this evening, then if you'll send that to Mr. Booker, I think he can then get it, coordinate with staff to look at it and let us know. Same thing at the next meeting. Is that an area that we can look at? Is an area that may be subject to preemption, things of that nature? That sound good for everybody moving forward?
Just, you should establish some timelines because you don't want it sent to him the day before the meeting. So that, and as far as public records, et cetera, I want a timeline for it back so I don't get it the same night or anything like that. So as long as you establish timelines, and the last thing is that it doesn't prevent any of us from suggesting anything at future meetings. It's not like this is not our one shot.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that. I think there's a lot of times that ideas may come from the process. And so, you know, I would say this is our first round. If there's something that we haven't talked about yet that is really kind of, you know, sitting with you, then if we can get it to Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker, when would you need that to get it into the agenda materials and have some analysis on it?
Mr. Watts?
Mr. Johnson.
I have a question. You know, there's some things that we may discuss in here that really don't rate going on the charter. Are we going to do like a recommendation letter to the county council at the end of things that we think about that may not be, but recommend to them that they look into?
Absolutely, and I think that also covers some of the things Commissioner Shiver was talking about earlier with regard to ordinance revisions and things of that nature. We will generate a report to the county council and go present that report with our recommendations for the actual charter amendments, and then also for any other recommendations on ordinances that ought to be looked at, or any other, kind of areas that this commission thinks, the council should take up, or commission, whatever they're called at that point in time. Vice Chair? Pat, do you have something to add?
I was just going to remind everybody to go back and pull the charter open again and reread it, and that will refresh our memories on what is already in there and maybe what needs to be changed, so. That's it.
Or added.
Okay.
Or added.
No, that's a great point. So, Mr. Booker and Mr. Dyer, when do you need the suggestions for to get them into our materials?
I was just going to say, we try to get everything a week ahead, so the Monday prior to our next meeting is when we try to get everything out. So a week prior to that would be most helpful.
1 week enough for you guys?
Yeah, I was gonna say if a goal, maybe it's not always met, is give it to him like 2 weeks before the meeting, because he gets the agenda materials together a week before. Because I respect, I don't want to be dropping things on you last minute, and you've had the opportunity to see them, so we appreciate that. We realize that may not always be possible. There may be something where you want it quicker, and that's up to you.
So I guess for purposes of clarity for members of the commission, November 3rd? So 2 weeks prior to the next meeting would be by the 27th. Is that doable for everybody? Okay, so Monday, the 27th, if you'll email those in to Mr. Booker, then we'll take them up from staff standpoint. Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, just for your own edification going forward, when you get to a point, if you do decide to recommend anything to go on a ballot, what your staff's going to do is write up what that draft ballot language will look like. And so there are restrictions in state law on how long the title, the ballot question is. And then the summary takes some time. So we will, like an ordinance of council, we would start doing that if you direct us to do that. And realize you're in a position now, you're kind of narrowing items, but you may also raise other things at a future meeting that could result in a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Could I just say one
Vice Chair.
final thing? One, thank you for color coding those, because that really made it a lot easier to go through them and come up with it. And I just want to commend you on being the chairman, because you have been doing a marvelous job of keeping all of us straight.
It's only our second meeting, Pat.
I know, but
No, I appreciate that. Hopefully that was helpful.
Public
Mr. Brown.
service announcement on your emails, just send it to staff. Please don't copy other commissioners
Oh,
on your
yeah.
email.
Yeah.
Sunshine, thank you.
Yeah, that is always a good reminder. Don't reply all to anything.
And, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Booker.
if you could use the VC charter review at volusia.org to send me the information, that would be
okay.
most helpful. It's the general email address, vccharterreview at volusia.org.
So you're saying by that the emails we send to you will automatically become part of the public record, just to reinforce that.
Anything that comes, yes, anything is public record. Not everything, but
Okay.
you know what I mean.
Well, I think we winnowed down the list, and I appreciate your working with me on doing that this evening. Last couple of items, just with regard to agreement on the agenda for the next meeting. My intent would be to have all the items that we just looked at. We may, at the next meeting, decide that we want to break things into some committees for review. I think that's probably, we'll look at kind of the universe of the things we've approved or the things that may come in between now and then, and decide how many committees might be necessary. I'll work with staff to maybe come into the next meeting with some recommendations for committee structure, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, depending on kind of what feels natural. Any other business from other members of the commission this evening? All right. I think Madam Secretary.
Can we take your photograph, please?
That was going to be my last thing before we adjourn. We've received a request to adjourn to the room over here to take a group photo. So, if everybody's good with that, we'll get a motion to adjourn and then head over there.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Group photo. Thank you for your time this evening.